So there's actually a theme there. The topic of today's talk is the key components of happiness. This was an outline submitted by Reverend Ordained Minister Willa Barber Johnson, and I love where she said she's ordained the world.
The what?
Pretty cool.
The world.
I liked it. So basically I used about a page of her outline, and I came up with 11 pages, but I've been told that sometimes these talks go too long. It's because I love the sound of my voice. It makes me happy. And that's what we're about. So what makes you truly, deeply happy? None of us are children, so hopefully we know what makes us happy at this point in our lives. And if you know what it is, do you know how to find it? Do you know how to achieve happiness? When you were born, when you came into this world, if you were warm, you were dry, and you weren't hungry, chances are you were happy. How did you know to be happy? Maybe that's your natural, normal state. That's how we're supposed to be. When you got your new body, did you read the operator's manual that came with it?
One came with it?
That's the problem. If it did, we don't remember, and if it did, we couldn't read. But we still knew how to be happy. Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, said most people are searching for happiness. They're looking for it. They're trying to find it in someone or something outside of themselves. That's a fundamental mistake. Happiness is something that you are, and it comes from the way that you think. Ernest Holmes told us that many times. People are born to be happy, live creatively, to love to sing, to dance, to express themselves to the fullest. So why is it that not every person on the planet is always completely happy? Remember, Dr. Holmes, said we're born to be happy, to be abundantly supplied with every good thing, to have fun in living, to consciously unite with the divine power that's around us, within us, and to grow, and to expand forever. Because it's an expanding universe. We're part of it. So what keeps us from being happy? Well, for starters, we either didn't get or didn't receive the operator's manual when we came in. And we live in this three-dimensional, heavy experience. And we don't always remember what the rules are. If we don't know or understand the rules of this existence, it becomes a lot harder to win in this game. For me, the real and true value of this teaching is to remind us that there are rules. We call them spiritual principles. And that you can use these principles for your benefit. Until Edison figured out how to use electricity, it had always been there. We just didn't know how to use it. The same with the benefits of flight with the Wright brothers. The principles were there, but we didn't know how to use it. Same in the medical field. Antibiotics. How many people died from a mild infection until we discovered how to use antibiotics? So one focus, and really it's a powerful focus of this teaching, is to reveal these spiritual principles. Now I'll say to remind you of these principles because it is a reminder. This truth is already in us. It's contained within us. We're part of that truth, that consciousness. So we just turn within to find out. Now, for today's discussion, I'm going to say there are 3 key components to happiness: presence, perspective, and gratitude. The first we'll discuss is presence. Now, Joel Goldsmith, one of my favorite authors, and really my introduction to New Thought, had a great book called Practicing the Presence. And that's the presence I'm talking about. The awareness, the conscious union with the divine, with spirit. And it's a day-by-day practice of awareness. Happiness isn't a future projection, nor is happiness a past experience. Happiness is a present moment awareness. It's connecting with the presence, spirit, God, divine source, creator, Pachamama, Father Sky, awareness of one, awareness of life and love. And it must be an active part of consciousness is your daily experience. If you don't practice it daily until it's a habit, then it's work. But when you practice it daily, it becomes part of your self-expression. It is your innate expression. It's who you are. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is not here yet, and so it's a mystery. Today is the present. Today is where the gift resides. Stay in today, in each now moment, as best you can. We have to cultivate our relationship with Spirit. Even though it's natural, everything about this 3D takes us away from that. Spend time in your spiritual practice, meditation, prayer, visioning, journaling, walking, singing, dancing. Spend time in nature. Reconnect with life. There's a powerful force on this planet, and the planet is life, but it's life expressing itself, growing, expanding. Say yes to the little things that make you feel happy. Because if you can't accept the little things, you can't accept the big things. Sometimes we have problems accepting gifts, but everything is a gift. Life is a gift, especially if it makes you feel happy and joyful. Do more of that. Ernest says in Science of Mind, let us waste no further time looking for the secret of success or happiness. Already the door is open, and whosoever will may enter. And he also says, you are more than you appear to be. Life is greater than you've ever known it. The best is yet to come. Ernie was pretty smart. That's the reason this teaching is still around. So happiness is our true divine nature. Happiness leads to joy. Joy leads to fulfillment. Our freedom to choose allows us to experience whatever it is that we choose to experience. We can express happiness or not. It's our choice. We are co-creators with Spirit. Spirit wants us to be expansive, to be joyful, But we have a choice to say no. That's our choice. It's free will. So there are keys we can use to express happiness, joy, fulfillment in the midst of all that is and that which is not. In Spiritual Awareness, Dr. Holmes had this quote: "It is written that heaven's day is not limited by time, but is eternally present. It is this day in which we live. Therefore, we should accept happiness as our divine birthright today. We know that happiness must be God's will for everyone." So the first component was presence. The second component, and it's really the one only you can control, is perspective. Your perspective, how you look at things. We can choose the lens we look through. Is our glass half full, or is it half empty? Do we see things as a challenge or a growth opportunity, a burden, a curse, or a blessing? Sometimes the greatest challenges in our life are the greatest blessings. And it's even a blessing when they leave. So we choose what it is we desire to see and be. Look for the good in every situation, every circumstance. Now, I'm sure some of you will remember the old story. A little child was visiting some relatives and stepped in some horse poop. And the kid was excited. "There must be a pony here." Look for the good. So smile. Smiling is contagious. And it makes you feel better too. If your smile is fake, that's okay. We have an expression: fake it till you make it. Smiling and yawning are contagious. Here's a quote from Tao Chuan Ling. "The measure of your success is a matter of perception. Are you perceiving things as they are, or as you wish them to be? To know, notice your thoughts upon awaking each day. Are they happy thoughts or sad? Listen to their message." Here's an ancient Greek quote by Epictetus. "Men are not disturbed by the things that happen, but by their opinion of the things that happen." That's perspective. And my favorite, Joel Goldsmith, in his original book, The Infinite Way. This is kind of a long quote. "Let us begin with the understanding that our world is not an erroneous one, but rather that the universe in which we live is the realm of reality, about which man entertains a false concept. The work of bringing health and harmony into our experience is not then getting rid of or even changing a mortal universe, but correcting the finite concept of our existence." So Goldsmith's telling us there's nothing wrong with the universe. It's just the way we view that universe, how it works, what it provides. It's our perspective that matters. And it's our perspective that frequently needs to be corrected, not the universe. In the Science of Mind collection, Dr. Holmes said, "All the power of the universe is with you. Feel it, know it, and then act as if it were true." So according to Holmes, there's this power, this presence, and it nurtures and supports us in ways that we can't even imagine. Is that any different than me saying the entire universe conspires for my good? Because that's what I believe. Because it works for me. You can say it any way you want it. Just say it. Believe it. Roll it around in your consciousness. Experiment with it. And most definitely, act as if it's true. Because if you act as if it's true for you, it becomes true. Now, I remember Esther Hicks talking about this experience. And she says, sitting in awareness for 10 minutes a day, 10 to 15 minutes a day, not in a meditative state, but in a contemplative state. Think about the conditions, not that you're experiencing, but what you want to experience. We're powerful. When you do that with energy, with enthusiasm, the universe must deliver it. Of course, in our affirmations, we always have this picture, something we're affirming, but we always say this or something better. Because we know the universe has a much bigger picture for us than we do. It's more than we can even imagine. Also in the book, The Law of Attraction, the Hicks talk about, by deliberately directing your thoughts, rather than merely observing what is happening around you, you will begin to change the vibrational pattern to which the law of attraction is responding. Author Gary Zukav, many of us know, what is behind your eyes holds more power than what is in front of them. But I don't want you to think this is all just a brand new thought concept. Roman Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. That's pretty plain. I could have just got up, said that, and sat back down. But what makes me happy is standing here talking to you. So I'm going to keep going. In Science of Mind magazine, March 2002, if we would bring happiness to those around us, we must first become happy ourselves. But before we can become happy, something has to happen that causes us to know that spirit is right where we are. That good is the final power in the universe, and that love is an all-conquering force. That's a little longer than Marcus Aurelius, but it's powerful. We need something to convince us that what we're talking about here is the truth. I don't know, I'm sure every one of you has had something that brought you to this point, that convinces you there is a power for good, and that we can and should use it, not just for our benefit, but for everyone around us. So, the third and easiest component for happiness is the easiest one to practice: gratitude. Allow your perspective to become one where you look through the lens of love with a sense and gaze of gratitude. Keep a list of what you're grateful for. By focusing on gratitude, we become more positive. We replace the concept of burdens with blessings. We feel better emotionally, physically. We have fewer symptoms of illness we become happier. Then share your gratitude in both tangible and intangible ways. And for anyone that still needs help on how to be grateful, here's a book. 14,000 things to be happy about. Anyone need this? I'm not going to say anything. I'll just put it over here. Anyone needs to have a reminder? 14,000 things, and I'll bet if you worked at it, you could come up with 14,000 more. I mean, you can't even begin to imagine the stuff that's in there, but you can be grateful for it. In Practicing the Presence, which I mentioned earlier, Goldsmith says, gratitude is not related to an expectancy of what we may receive tomorrow. Gratitude is the sharing of expressing joy for the good already received. And through books like The Law of Attraction and The Secret, we learn and we know we are huge magnets. If you were here on the winter solstice celebration, I brought magnets and I said, look, it's magic. Magic. And before we had a yeah, okay. We're pointing to the penny that's still attached to the wall 2 months later by magic. It is. Magic and magnet sound kind of similar. Until you know the principles behind it, it might seem like magic. It depends how you define magic. But we are magnets. Esther and Gary Hicks frequently say that if you're focused on being poor, you cannot attract wealth. You can't attract abundance. If you're focused on being lonely, you can't attract a partner. If you're focused on poor health, you can't attract great health. You have to shift your polarity. Certain magnets repel because they're the same. They're both negative or whatever. That's a bad analogy. Let that one go. But the spiritual principle of it works, unlike my story of magnets. Whether you approach it from a spiritual standpoint or not, it works. In the book Think and Grow Rich, they're not talking about spiritual principles. They're not talking about a spiritual viewpoint, but they are talking about the power of attraction within our own minds. Reverend Willa, who submitted this outline, has a quote that she came up with, and I thought this was the best thing in the entire outline. Gratitude is a shape shifter and an experience changer. When we focus our awareness on gratitude, we acknowledge the good in our lives. When in gratitude, we change what we see, therefore we change what we experience, and happiness and joy become magnified and multiplied. And on the multiplication side, something I've said before, this is a quote from Mary Morrissey, gratitude invokes the law of increase. Appreciation is the divine multiplier. I've frequently said we should use appreciation rather than gratitude because appreciation means it's growing. In the Book of Joy by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, they point out that when you are grateful, you are not fearful. When you are not fearful, you are not violent. When you act out of a sense of enough and not out of a sense of scarcity, you are willing to share. If you're grateful, you're enjoying the differences between people and respectful to all people. A grateful world is a world of joyful people. A grateful world is a happy world. That's a good quote. Last week, Susan and I saw a news story on TV of a high school, and I think it was back east, has a mandatory class on gratitude. Mandatory. They're not teaching that from spiritual principles, which is okay. They're teaching it from a scientific background that has documented the effects of gratitude on the brain. The scientific evidence is that it literally rewires our brain, and I talked about that when I was taking the science in the brain class last year, or earlier this year. It changes our perspective, and every one of those students, not everyone, but most of those students were becoming more positive. There were less problems, better attitudes. They were less fearful, not violent, less absenteeism, better behavior, and better grades from one class in gratitude. It was changing the lens that they looked through. And as someone just said, when you change what you see, you change your life. Life responds to us however we approach it. We can and should choose that which we embody by the constant attention to those things we seek, we appreciate, for which we're gratitude. We can identify with power, with love and beauty, because that's all within us. That's who we are as spiritual beings. We can identify with abundance, with success. Now, the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop have seen some hard times. 50 years of hard times. Exile, prison, soul-crushing oppression. Despite those hardships, they're two of the most joyful people on the planet. The Dalai Lama's ability to be grateful for the opportunities that exist, even in exile, is a profound shift in his perspective. It allows him to not only accept the reality of the circumstance, but to make it an opportunity for growth for himself, his followers, the Tibetans, possibly the Chinese. He says the root of joy is gratefulness. It's not joy that makes us grateful, it is gratitude that makes us joyful. Now they talk about a story, and I'm briefly going to go over it. They had met a man who had been imprisoned for 30 years for homicide. He was black. He was told when he was arrested that because he was black, he would spend the rest of his life in jail. When the homicide was committed, he was at work, locked into a factory in oppressive conditions that didn't get into the trial. So he was wrongfully convicted. 30 years, 1 hour a day he was allowed out of solitary confinement. Many, many, many people were aware of what had happened and were trying to get him out. Finally, the Supreme Court had to take the case, voted unanimously he'd been wrongfully convicted, and he was released. And he's given many, many interviews, and they said, how can you not be angry, hostile at the people who locked you up 30 years, and many of them knew you weren't guilty? He said, I already gave them 30 years. I can't give them one more day. I have to be free. so he held no ill will to them. That was the lens that he looked at it. And he talked about most people cover up when it rains. He runs out into the rain to feel it as a blessing, as a reminder that he is free. So, life is experienced moment by moment. And we interpret those moments by the lens we look through. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. Happiness is our true divine nature. Joy is our divine birthright. We have the freedom of choice. I urge you, choose wisely. Allow the truth that's in you to bubble up, to remind you of that. And so it is.
And so it is.